The talk for this evening, there was a question somebody wanted me to talk about. What is this thing we call the ego? Is it just a perception, or is it something which is real? So the talk today will be something about the ego. And please also know that I never research a question or the answer. Always just let that idea stay in my mind and see what comes out. And one thing which firstly comes out, the idea of what is real and what is a fabrication, just a perception. And that's quite important because we make up our reality. One part of the ego is our ability to will, to choose, to decide. Is there such a thing as free will? If you take that concept even deeper, what is this thing, will, which often is an important part of your life? And when you do meditation, sometimes you can see, just like you can see how your body feels and how the senses are, sometimes you can see this movement of the mind, this thing which we call will. But you got so used to making up what this will really is because you associate it with what comes after. You have this thing which you can identify when you're meditating as a choice, as a will comes up, a desire to do something, that will. And you really believe that that is what causes the action of body, speech or mind which comes up afterwards. We just make that connection, and it's a false assumption. Because what happens is something starts first, which you are unmindful of. That's what Professor Libet used to say was a readiness potential. You notice that, and that readiness potential creates this event which we call will. We notice that as will. We assume that's the first thing we see. That must be what started this course of events of body, speech and mind. And then you see the event actually happening. One of the reasons why this came to mind is a couple of people now have been sending me emails saying you should look at this latest research on willpower. One of those comments about willpower was of this research which was done at Stanford University in the United States, and they just noticed that when a prisoner goes to seek parole, from this group of magistrates or whoever they are, they noticed, they did the research, just simple statistics, that you are 60% more likely to get parole no matter what you've done, if the magistrate sees that after a good lunch. And people say, no, that can't be right, but it is right. So if you want to ask your boss for a raise, just have a good lunch first. They're out of control, it's just cause and effect, that's all it is. If you want to ask your husband for some new clothes, get him a nice lunch first of all, and then ask him. I've been telling the monks at Bodhinyana Monastery this for years. If you want to go on a retreat, just make sure I have a good lunch first of all, and then ask me afterwards. You're far more likely to say yes. I shouldn't really say this, but even our committee, sometimes I know that I've been on that committee all my life just about, the longest serving committee member because I'm the spiritual dictator. Oh, sorry, not spiritual director. That was actually one of our members once said, Ajahn Brahm, you're not the spiritual director of the Buddhist Society of Western Australia, you're the spiritual dictator. But not upfront dictator. You do it sort of like under the table with suggestions and with psychology. You know, one way to do that psychology. No, I shouldn't say this. I'm giving all the tricks away. You think you know all my tricks, but I keep a few secret just to make sure. But just even that little thing, I'm quite surprised how easy it is to do. And that lady, just Rachel Green, haven't seen her for a while, but she did such a good service, and I got a lot of gratitude for her. That she was, when it came to the committee, and she was such an amazingly organised woman, so generous with her time. And so when I asked her to be a committee member, and why not be the president? Do you remember Rachel? And when I asked her to be the president, of course, like many of you, you say, no, we're too busy, we can't do it. That's not how to get people to help you. Over here, when I ask, can any of you join our committee to be the events manager, or what's the other one, events or membership? I knew it was membership, but if I'd have said that, it gets much more power when somebody else is forced to say that name, membership. But anyhow, with this lady, I said during the beginning of the meditation, I said to her, look, you are too busy. I'm sorry, I should not have asked you. I backtracked. And I said, it's not right that I ask you these things. And I remember her response. She was really negative. What do you mean that, you can't ask me to be the president? I can be the president if I want to. I said, no, you can't. I forbid you. You're working too hard. Out of kindness, I ban you from being the president. And then she went to bed that night, and she kept thinking about it all night. She was just fighting the ideas. To prove a point, she filled out the form, and she became our president. That's how Dennis became a president many years ago, wasn't it? But you didn't recognize it, did you? That's why Leha became a really great ops manager. Did you realize why you took that position? Did you think it was your free choice? That's what people think, because they don't see just how the mind works. We work on conditioning. And it's fascinating to see that. If you want to understand what this ego is, what the sense of self is it something real, or is it made up? It is made up by you. Your conditioning, your built-up picture of who you think you are, and just how you need to have some idea of who you are in order to perform in this world. Are you a doctor? Are you a good doctor? Who tells you? Me, look at me. Repeat after me. I am a good doctor. I am a good doctor. I am a good doctor. You think I'm joking, but sometimes those words get in there, and you think about them. Somebody you respect has said that, so you actually start thinking like that. That's what I do to monks. I am a teacher. My job is always to encourage them, never to criticize them. I know someone was asking me earlier, said they heard some talks, translated talks of Ajahn Chah, criticizing sort of monks. Have you ever heard me criticizing monks? Honestly? If I did, if I was criticizing monks or monks' behavior or nuns' behavior, that would actually suppress them. That would actually just stop their growth. I can't do that. One of the reasons is because what the heck are you criticizing? What is a monk? What is a nun? What is a human being? What is a doctor? Of course you can't criticize. I'll keep going back to this story, but it's a powerful one. The one about the trees in the forest. Please use this yourself. I've just been through Indonesia. There's so many beautiful forests in Indonesia. But wherever I go in the world, never ever have I seen a perfect tree. What is perfect? Whatever image you have of perfect. Well, you know, sometimes, okay, I was male before I was a monk. I'm a male now, I suppose. But sometimes, you know, you see in magazines pictures of these women I thought were drop dead gorgeous when I was about 18. And I remember one of them, like Twiggy. Any of you old enough to remember Twiggy? No, she was this Western model. She was so thin. And I look at her now and think, crikey, you know, if I'd have seen her, I would have never asked her to go out with me. I mean, nothing wrong about that, but I was actually conditioned by all of that media and photos and people who were saying, oh, how beautiful she is. But in reality, look at her, you know, many years back, and they weren't that beautiful. Even when you go and see portraits of people, you know, in museums, really very beautiful people, at least they were at that time, and you look at them, and most of those women about 100 years ago were fat, and they were drop dead gorgeous. So any women who are fat these days, you were just born in the wrong century, that's all. So why do we consider these things to be attractive? The only reason we consider these things to be attractive is because we're told that they're attractive. We're conditioned to believe that. And it's amazing just how much that conditioning works on us. One of the times when I really sort of got caught into being conditioned like that, I probably told the story 2 weeks ago, but I'm hoping that many people here are getting old and older, forgetting what I said last time I gave a talk here. And that was that story of St. Bruno tobacco. I usually tell this on retreats. Absolutely true story. I'd never smoked cigarettes when I was young, but when you went to university, you saw that all of these great professors, really intelligent people, would smoke a pipe. You know, just like Albert Einstein, Niels Bohr, all these people I really respected, you know, really geniuses. They would put a pipe in their mouth and put some tobacco in it and light it. So I thought it was, you know, the appropriate accessory, you know, to the clothes which I wore. And especially at that time, because you were a student, I don't know if you've seen pictures of me when I was that young. I had this big bushy hair, big curly hair out here somewhere. And where it finished, that's where my beard started and continued around. It was like called the donut look. You just see my face peering out in the middle. And honestly, it was very helpful if you were growing up in a city like London or Cambridge. It was really cold there. You never needed a hat. You had a hair which was around you, keeping you warm. But that with a pipe, then I saw on the TV that any person who put this some Bruno tobacco in a pipe and lit it went walking down the street. All these incredibly beautiful women would be entranced by the aroma of St. Bruno tobacco. So much so that in the advertisement, I still remember, This drop-dead gorgeous blonde was in a shop serving customers, and when she smelt some Bruno tobacco, she jumped over the counter and followed this man, waiting to do his every desire because she was enchanted with the aroma of St. Bruno tobacco. And then passing a greengrocer, that's where another beautiful brunette left her counter and followed this man. And then somebody else was following him. And after about 1 or 2 minutes, had all the most amazing, beautiful women in the world were following this guy. I mean, that was just misogynistic, sexist, and so many things were wrong with it. But I bought some. I did. I was embarrassed about that. But nevertheless, I did it. And I think, as I said, if you heard the story before, the only thing which followed me was a dog. Yeah, I deserved that. I was stupid. But then I often remember that I thanked that I actually did that, because it just showed me why did I do that? It was illogical, irrational, but I did that because I'd seen that advertisement so many times. I'd been conditioned. And so a lot of the things which you do, even your clothes, how you look. Why do you look like this? I decided when again I was a student to be rebellious, to think for myself. And so I remember just this one time, I was going to one of these, I'm talking about my generation, to this rock festival in the Isle of Wight. Going to see all these rock bands. And, of course, you couldn't wear a suit to such a festival. So I got some green velvet trousers. It's my green velvet trousers story. And I thought that's really being rebellious and being idiosyncratic. Not many people had green velvet trousers in those days. So when I went there, I was so surprised. There's thousands of other people had green velvet trousers as well. And I thought, my goodness. So these days I don't wear green velvet trousers. I wear brown robes and a bald head. And I stay with so many other people with brown robes and bald heads. Am I being idiosyncratic, being unique? Why am I doing this? So sometimes you ask yourself why you do what you do. Why you wear what you wear. Why you like what you like. Why you eat what you eat. Where do all those choices come from? And do you measure yourself by those? That's the worst thing. When people measure themselves by how many degrees they've got. They put them on the walls of their office. Or they have to do that, because that's what people expect. But are you an expert on these things? That's one of the reasons why I gave up academic pursuits when I was young. Because, you're a genius when you're young. It doesn't matter just how much experience you have. You usually lose the innovative tendencies. All the great discoveries, Nobel Prizes, were made by young people. When you get to when you get to our age, why can't we see new things? Do different things. See deeper into what we're actually acting on. There is something with our mind. We get bound by those conditions. We get imprisoned by them. We can't think outside of them. And that's where we get this idea of an ego from. We think we're clever. We think we're smart. But are we? I have had an interesting life so far, this lifetime, because you've met many sort of prime ministers and presidents. That's, being a senior Buddhist monk and going to conferences and stuff. And seeing some of the presidents which I've met, just on these big conferences overseas, some of them I say are really scary. You wouldn't like to meet them alone, because they've got so much power, and you can actually feel their character. I don't think they have any restraints at all. They think they own everything. And these are just your personal, just even one of the people I met here, I've met a few of the Prime Ministers of Australia, but I remember meeting John Howard, when he was a Prime Minister, at this big function over in Sydney and Melbourne. And I remember just, with Ajahn Sujato, we were just walking down the wrong direction, and there was John Howard and his wife, just waiting to meet everybody. And straight away you felt he had some kindness there, but my first impression was that, he owned Australia. Please excuse me, this is not politics, this is just a person. May have changed his ways now, but that sense of self and ego got very, very strong. And you can understand how it works. That he's the senior minister, he's successful, and everybody else underneath him will always, try and say nice things about him, so they can get preferences in being selected to be the next cabinet minister. In Australia they called it brown nosing. Oh good, you know what that means. But what happens then is you can get so easily believing that you are so good, you're so wonderful. And I know that I have to be really careful of that, because I'm a senior monk, and you get, medals and stuff. I never wear those medals, which I've got. I don't want to. You want to hide them. I remember even Ajahn Chah had got so many awards from people for his service in Thailand, but he would always call himself just Ajahn Chah, never Chao Kun or anything like that. And it's wonderful to be able to see that. He just wanted to be that ordinary monk because saw the danger, in when people praise you. Even right now, giving a talk to you, seen on the internet by so many people. I was asked, nice question in Indonesia. They were asking some very good questions, and one was, Ajahn Brahm, you're very well known. Aren't you afraid of what in Buddhism they call labha sakara suloka, which is gains, honor and fame? And I said, yes, I remember the time once when I gave this big talk in Singapore. It was the first time when so many people came to actually hear just one monk give a talk. And no support, not chanting, just give a talk to people one evening. And I knew many of these people, it was a weekday talk, about 2,000 or 3,000 people. Imagine that you're asked to give a talk to so many people, and they probably haven't eaten their dinner that evening yet. They've taken time after a busy day to come and listen to you. They're going to probably go to bed late that night, and they're very, very busy lifestyles in Singapore. And I thought, my goodness, why so many people come to listen to me? And straight away you saw the red flags of fear come up. This is really dangerous. If I give a terrible talk, then I feel I've let down, the Dhamma which I love, which has meant so much to me. I'm misrepresenting, the teachings I heard from Ajahn Chah. I can't let them down. I have to try my best or do something to inspire them. But if I really inspire them, that's even more dangerous, because then I might get too proud and arrogant and get a big ego. And you know what I thought when I remember this very clearly. I was walking up the stage and looking around, seeing all these people looking at you. They're just waiting to be inspired by you, or hearing something they never heard before. And as soon as I saw that, I've figured out it's not me giving the talk. My choice of words, my choice of topics, I looked at those and I knew where they came from. Most of those came from my own teachers, especially Ajahn Chah and a few other monks and nuns who inspired me. Even what I'm saying now. Honestly, this talk is not by Ajahn Brahm. Not at all. It's how I've been trained, how I've been taught to meditate, how I've been inspired even by the Buddha, by reading his talks. And they inspire you. And that means that this is not Ajahn Brahm at all. And that was such a wonderful insight to have, because it could take away my ego. It's not me, it's Buddhism. I'm being true to Buddhism, true to meditation, true to my teachers. I even said that even true to my own father, who inspired me much with stories like opening the door of your heart story. All of those things which meant so much to me from others, I didn't just steal them from them. They gave me and they sort of brewed me up to be the monk I am. It's not me. And that was a wonderful lesson, because what that meant, I realized that when you are up front there teaching other people, even if it's really popular, you don't have to be afraid. It's a beautiful service you give, but you avoid the danger of pride and ego by always saying, this is not me. And always being open. This is the other thing which I love about our tradition, and for you too. Always open to ask questions, if not online, if not in front of the microphone, even like personally afterwards. And being open enough. My bedroom in Bodhinyana Monastery is the most popular or well-visited tourist attraction in that monastery. I don't know about how many of you got a bedroom which is a tourist attraction. It's in my cave. And just when I'm not in there, it's open. I don't know if any of you go there on the weekend when I'm here, but you can go up there and just open the door and have a look inside. This is my own cave. It's my bedroom. You're not hiding anything. You can look under the mattress, see what's under the mattress. And it's important to be able to do that, because the more upfront you are, the more open you have to be. You don't need to be afraid. Of course I make mistakes. And somebody, Burr was asking me just when I was coming up here today, she's looking after a retreat, run by Venerable Kai Si from Penang on the next 7 or 8 days. She can speak the local language and Penang, and also that she was saying that she's not perfect. I don't know any of you know Burr. She works her heart out, but of course she's not perfect. Neither am I. I told her the 70% rule. 70% is good enough. You don't need to have perfection. And I got that for when I was a school teacher. When I asked, what should I do when you set an exam? How hard or how easy should it be? Too hard, and people think they can't do. Maths, that was my subject. Too easy, and there's no point to it. So I remember the teacher telling me 70% is the best average score. 70%, if that's what the kids get, they will all think they can do maths. It gives them confidence. That's all they need. Of course everyone can do it. It's just that confidence. When you have that confidence, you'll be successful whatever. And the 30% where you make mistakes, that's for me, the teacher. I've found out where they're weak. And I can actually address those weaknesses in the next lessons. That's why, when anybody comes and gives a talk here, if they make a few mistakes, great. That's where they learn and they do much better afterwards. So you don't have to be afraid of performing. I was telling that's how I was actually taught. I was telling Ajahn Chah that. Telling some monks that, because I was asking them to give a talk and they thought maybe they're too young to give a talk. But I was first asked to give a talk when I was only 4 years old as a monk. That's pretty sort of young to give a talk when you only got 4 rains retreats. But that was asked for me from Ajahn Chah. He was my teacher. He couldn't refuse. If you haven't heard that story, it's a bit sort of scary for me to tell, but this is actually what happened. This was on what they call in Thailand Magha Puja. One of the biggest days in the year, the full moon day in February. And we all had to go to Ajahn Chah's monastery, Wat Ba Pong. And there's maybe 100 monks, 150 monks there, and I was close to the bottom of the line. 4 years as a monk, he was still very junior. And when Ajahn Chah was supposed to give the talk, he decided that day he didn't want to give the talk. So if he decided he didn't want to give the talk, he wouldn't. And what he would do, I'd seen him do this before, he looked down the line of monks, make eye contact with you. And it was scary, because if he stopped at you, you were in trouble. You had to go up and give a talk. And he came to my eyes and carried on. Whew. I don't know if I sighed a sigh of relief, but I certainly felt that way. And then Ajahn Chah's eyes came back up the line again. Stopped at me. Brahmavangso, give the talk. And that was really scary. You know, in front of your teacher, in front of about 150 monks and a few thousand lay people. And I had to give the talk in Thai. In those days I could speak Thai and speak it quite well. These days, don't ask me to give a talk in Thai these days. The last time I gave a talk in Thai in Dhammaloka Centre, the people afterwards, a group of Thais, on a pilgrimage over here, and they came over here and they asked me to give a talk in Thai, and after I gave a simple talk in Thai, only 20 minutes, I couldn't believe their reaction. Sadhu, 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 they all said. And I felt so egotistical. I felt, I can still speak Thai, still inspire people. And I felt so good about myself, I could actually just still have a memory which can express the Dharma in Thai. And then the leader said, sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. That's the first time ever we've heard a Dhamma talk in the Pali language. They actually said that. Oh, I felt so rotten. It wasn't Pali, it was Thai. I always thought it was Pali. So that was the end of that. But it's nice that, you can take criticism and you can take failure. You try your very best, and sometimes it succeeds and sometimes it doesn't. I remember even, this was I think over in Pinjara school. Was it Pinjara school? No, I think it was another school. It was a girls' school. They wanted to have different teachers, one teach on Buddhism, one teach on Islam, one teach on Hinduism. I did the Buddhism bit. And afterwards I got the feedback from them and said, no, we preferred the Islamic man. He was a Westerner because he was blonde-haired and much taller than you. These were 14, 15-year-old schoolgirls. I didn't care what you were saying. They're looking about what you look like. Anyway, where was I with this? With the ego. You actually concoct an ego. Who do you think you are? That's one of the reasons, if you want to find out what you think you are, what you take yourself to be. And I was mentioning this to someone a few days ago. They wanted to give a talk on non-self. What is the self? You don't get anywhere without being philosophical like that when you ask the wrong question. Ask the right question. What do you take yourself to be? What is your assumptions of who you are? That's much nicer. And those assumptions of who you are, sometimes when you're young, you think you're intelligent. I thought I was intelligent. I went to Cambridge University. I had a scholarship up there. I studied theoretical physics under one of the same professors as taught Stephen Hawkins. Wow. You ask me a question on theoretical physics now and I get it wrong for sure. That part of your life disappears. Many of your memories of just important things in life disappear. How many of you get things wrong? Of course you get things wrong. Is it because you're no good? Maybe, of course not. That's the problem. We're afraid of criticism. We give criticism too much. I said earlier, I never try to criticize any monks. I've told this story before, but I don't mind telling it again. One of our monks is a great monk. And the only reason why, he never went to university. When he ordained with me, he was brilliant at everything. Whatever task you gave him to do, he could do it so well. And I think many of you know that was Ajahn Santuti. You won't mind me telling you this. But he was born in Indonesia. Did you know that? On the boat, escaping from Vietnam during the Vietnam War. His mother was incredibly courageous, to actually, to leave while she was pregnant. And they managed to stop in the island off Indonesia somewhere. That's where he was born. He managed to get to Perth as a migrant, obviously doing it very tough. But then I remember when he joined our monastery, he was absolutely brilliant in everything. Any of you who've been over to the monastery he has, Kusala Vihara, just off Brookton Highway, it's well worth visiting. Just about all those buildings he kind of built himself. And the quality of that work is astounding. Even more than that, I still remember when he was an anagarika, wearing white. And the Singaporeans were coming for one of their retreats. And I didn't have a cook, to make their meals for them. And especially, this guy, he's Asian. He is Vietnamese, but he saw he can cook some stuff, for the Singaporeans, which they would like. I don't know if any of you were on that retreat. I remember I was a teacher on that retreat, and I saw all of these Singaporeans that go into the kitchen just to watch. And there was Ajahn Santuti, who was an anagarika at this time, with a couple of woks blazing away and just mixing everything up with this huge smile on his face. And it was incredibly delicious food. And that was him doing it. Do you remember that, Dennis? Yeah. I can never remember. It was just, they just weren't really worried about the food. They knew it was going to be tasty, but just to watch him and see him do this, it was just really entertaining. Whatever he did was always spectacular. Sorry? Cream, yeah, whatever it was, it tasted nice. He didn't ask the ingredients, just follow the taste. Anyway. But even any of you who go to Jhana Grove, and I don't know if you remember that story, but in Jhana Grove Meditation Retreat Center, we've got our meditation hall, and they have a bamboo floor, very beautiful bamboo floor, and of course that was one of the last things they put in. They put in, we put in, because the night before the opening ceremony was going to start, the thing wasn't finished. We had half a floor there, and the rest was still not done. And the person, the builder, actually the contractor, tried to get many, many people to come, but it was just before Easter, the day before Good Friday. everybody was going on a holiday or whatever. So we were stuck with the floor half finished. We were getting all these VIPs coming. One of those VIPs was Jeff Gallup. And he still is the patron of Jhana Grove Retreat Centre. And we had no floor. So what do you do in a Buddhist society when the building is not finished? The monks. Ajahn Santuti came. He was a monk at that time. And he worked at about, was it 3 o'clock in the morning? 4 o'clock in the morning, all night, just finishing off that floor. And I say that to you because we're not just monks who teach or tell silly jokes. We actually do work as well. And it is a quality of work. The mindfulness, the dedication was so incredible that when people go there for a retreat and you sit on that corner, from where I'm sitting, it's on the right-hand side. When you enter the door on the left-hand side, that was just built just the last night, so it would be ready in time for the opening ceremony. It was not just, and I just couldn't believe, why on earth did you never go to university, Ajahn Santuti? You know why? He told me once. It was one of his relations, senior relations, once told him he got a bad report one day from school. And he said, "You're stupid, you're a disgrace to the family, you're terrible." And he believed it. And from that day on, he stopped trying. Always remember that he made an ego for himself, but it was an ego of someone who could not do things. He was, not too good in academia. Everything else in life he could do so beautifully, which is the real Ajahn Santuti. The one he chose is more than good enough, but he could have been a professor or something if he wanted to. That's just one example of somebody I think you know very well. So we make up egos, we create them. And that's a wonderful thing to know, because it does mean that you can be anyone. I'm not just saying that for motivation. You can, whatever you want to be. That's how we encourage you as teachers, as parents. Tell your kid he's never a failure. You can always grow and do better. I remember telling that story once. I'm just telling too many stories, but here it comes. You're still mostly here, so you must be enjoying it. But I'll finish off soon. There was when I was a school teacher, again. Because like any school teacher, at the end of the year you do exams. And at the end of the year, because I was a teacher of one class, I had to give out the report cards at the end of the year. And one of the kids in my class came bottom of the class. Of course, one kid has to come bottom. That's just the way, but he believed that was a very personal slight on him. Just because if you had a class full of Einsteins, one of the Einstein family has to come bottom. So when I gave out the card to him, the report card, I just looked at his face, and his face just dropped. He was so disappointed. More than disappointed, afraid as well. Imagine coming bottom of the class. What will your mum and dad say? Now you'll be okay because your mum and dad, I tell them what to believe. But this kid, you could read his mind. He was thinking all the terrible things his parents are going to tell him tonight. All the comments he's going to get from his friends. Stupid, dummy, whatever else they say these days. But when I saw him being depressed, I thought, no, I can't allow one of my students to be depressed and be suffering for no real good reason. So I went up to him. They knew I was a Buddhist. I taught them meditation. That was in 1974 4, I think. 650 kids in the morning, sitting really still, meditating. That was a really fun thing to do. But anyway, they knew I was a Buddhist. So I said, I'm now going to teach you about the Bodhisattva. Bodhisattva is part of Buddhism, usually Mahayana Buddhism, but don't worry about that. They say a Bodhisattva is a person who sacrifices their own happiness and well-being for the sake of the happiness of their friends and colleagues. I said, that's you, I said to this boy. You deliberately failed the exams and took the lowest position so that all your friends in this class will not have to face what you're going to get from your parents tonight. You're a hero. I remember this kid, because you're a teacher, you're standing up and they're at their desk looking at you. He wasn't looking at me with anger, he was almost surprised. You know, what a crazy teacher I've got. No wonder I come bottom. But then I told him, I carried on with my explanation. I said, after this class is finished, I am going to the headmaster's study. I'm going to nominate you for the Bodhisattva of the Year award in this school. You know, your sacrifice is heroic, taking the bottom place in this class. But I did say before I left, but remember this, you were only allowed the Bodhisattva prize once in your career at school. So next year let somebody else fail. I kind of like that attitude. You're not criticizing anybody. You're not saying this is an ego. You've got educational problems, this problem, that problem, another problem. You're not even calling them problems. You just said this is just what happened this year. It doesn't define who you are or who you will be in the future. So your ego is totally changeable. You can be a fool, you can be a genius. Which would you rather be? A winner or a loser? I put my hand up a long time ago to be a loser. Losing is much more fun. It is. When you lose things, you're free of them. When you're a winner, you have to go and compete next week and do the same again, or even do better. The same with, I shouldn't say this, but I keep on saying it, same when you do exams. You have to keep on doing exams until you eventually fail. I should have learned that years ago. So fail early, then you can have a nice easy life. Keep on passing, you've got to go to another university, do another interview, do another exam, do another test. And it goes on and on. How many degrees can you get? Heaps of them. It doesn't finish. So, be a loser. And when you lose things, kind of you're free, less responsibility. Isn't that the case? Be a monk. Lose everything. Is that a good lifestyle? Just lose all your free time and join our committee. That's a start. Okay, I'm going over time again, so I'm going to lose it and finish off now. So thank you all for listening to An Ego is What You Make, not who you are. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Excellent. Okay, question time. Who's going to ask the best question today? Or even better, the worst question? I got some questions on the machine. Got one over there? No, you got a question there, yeah. A question from alive rather than artificial reality. Are you a robot?
Oh.
No.
It was a very nice talk. Thank you, Ajahn.
Oh, thank you.
It was good. I'm wondering, it feels like that devotion dissolves ego. It felt like a thread of that through the talk. Would you comment on that?
Devotion. It depends what you're devoted to, because that can make sometimes other egos us, rather than the people who are devoted to something else and them. Honestly, this is a big question, but I always wondered, now why are there always really good people, but they argue sometimes to the death? How many wars are there going on in the world right now? And the two peoples are actually quite close together. Either Abrahamic faith or Greek or the Russian Orthodox faith. You think that they're so close together, but why do they fight? They're too devoted. And sometimes people are convinced and controlling the media, controlling the social media, what they're allowed to, or what they're controlled to listen to and believe. I don't know how many of you who just don't have much idea of the history of these conflicts, you go to those places and say, what on earth is happening here? People who can speak the same languages, understand each other. Why on earth can't we share? Ego is also, the more you own, the bigger your ego. It's ownership, identification. Who you think you are. Does that make any sense to you?
It does. It felt like that when you had to give the talk in front of Ajahn Brahm, and when you had to give the talk in Singapore, and even when it seemed like that your devotion to the teachings, to the Dharma, dissolved that. That was really where I was coming. But I also am feeling what you're saying with regard to being too fixated on that one point.
I did trust those teachers, and did trust the wisdom, which was coming up at a later time in my life when you give big talks. It wasn't the content of the talk which is important. It's how I felt about giving it. And I trusted that was a good solution, and my goodness, it was. I don't know where that question came from, but it didn't come from you. Okay, Prem has a question.
Ajahn, another word for ego is sense of self, is that right?
Close.
Some people take it onto their own hands to show a sense of self, otherwise they believe they are a failure in the community, in the education system or the working life. So unknowingly they collect this sense of self or ego without realizing that they are running into danger. Is that?
Yeah.
Agree?
The idea of a sense of self is dangerous. It's nice to be able to have an idea that a sense of self is not permanent. It can be changed. You don't have to be. Even I noticed this one memory. Just first time I went to visit my mother in the UK. Not many people even knew who I was, that I was a Buddhist monk. So lots of people would shout abuse at you. Get a proper job. I remember that saying. But still I remember, because I went to visit her around the holiday season, when it got to Christmas Day and I was walking from one place to another, and no one would ever abuse me. They'd always say, "Merry Christmas, whoever you are." The whole attitude changed. just because of a day of the year. Today was a holiday day, and everybody was happy and respectful. The day before, they would abuse you. I remember seeing that, experiencing that. It was kind of weird. But it just did show that which one was the right me. Okay. Tell a joke. I haven't told many jokes today.
Thank you, Ajahn.
Thank you, okay. This was this Islamic mullah Nasruddin. And after a retreat, he took his students to a fun fair for a bit of a reward. And so one of the games in this fun fair was like archery. And you had 3 arrows for about, I don't know, $10 or whatever. And if you hit the target, you can get your own teddy bear or something. And so he said, yeah, I'll have a go at that. And his student said, I never believed that you were a good archer before. You never told us that you learned archery. And he said, oh, there's many things I haven't told you. So he got his first arrow, paid the $10 or however much it was, put it in the bow, pulled it back, and shot it. It only went about halfway to the target. It was a ridiculous shot. And they said, look, stop, you're embarrassing us. You know, you're a teacher. You know, they would get really upset. And he said, no, 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 that was a shot of a hasty man. So then he put the second arrow in, and he pulled it back, and he shot it. It went the distance, but about a $10 bus ride to the right, a long way off. And they said, look, stop it, you're embarrassing us even more. People are laughing at us. He said, no, that was a shot of an arrogant man. And so he put the third arrow in the... He said, look, don't do it. You know, you've already missed by so badly. You might kill someone next time. But he refused to listen to advice, and he put the third arrow in the bow and shot it. And of course, what happened to it? Right bullseye. Perfect shot. And the students couldn't believe it. And they had to ask him while he was collecting his teddy bear, who shot that? He said, oh, that was me. Do you understand? Anyway, I always liked that story. Okay, anyway. A quick, as long as there's a question.
Okay.
Go on.
Sorry, Ajahn Brahm. Thanks for a wonderful talk on ego, Ajahn Brahm. Ajahn Brahm, don't you think there are 2 types of ego? You know? One is the ego with good intention, you know, like a good intention, you know, like helping people, you know, or, you know, whereby you feel really good, you can feel it, you know, it's a good ego, you know. And the other ego, which is really hidden in us, you know, which you don't realize, but this type of ego, there is that disturbing feeling, you know, it's an ego.
Yeah.
You know, so if you can really pick this up, you know, and quickly change the negative ego, you know, and let it go to equanimity, then we feel better, you know. Do you see what I mean?
I see what you mean, yeah. It's also not just what's doing it, but just what is your aim in this. But you have to be careful there, because people feel they're doing good. I remember just first years I was in Thailand, had like Peace Corps workers. So they thought they were helping out Thailand. But the Thai villagers, obviously, I knew them so well, they said we're just tolerating them.
Oh.
They're just looking after them, they're just a bit of a nuisance. Because they never realized what they were actually doing. And they didn't have a cultural sensitivity to the people in the northeast of Thailand. So are you doing good? Good for whom? But I get your point there.
Yeah, thanks, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, this is interesting. A question from Bolivia. Someone is listening from Bolivia this evening. Could I do this one first, because I just saw it first? The Buddha taught to see not self when we are in suffering or in happiness. How can we be free from non-self? How non-self can cause happiness? It's to be free from the sense of a self. It's just the truth of the matter. Just who is this? Who is not just doing things, but experiencing things. Even just experiencing things, we actually filter what we want to experience. And we experience it in a way in which we've been taught to experience it. It's not like a real, fair, free experience of the world. And of course, I already mentioned there's many things in life you don't see. We're in denial to whatever just upsets us, or we feel negativity towards what we like to see. We usually embellish that. And how can non-self cause happiness? Non-self gives you the freedom. You don't have to see things in this way or that way, be identified with one way of looking at things. Even like in medicine, I love just how the mind and medicine interact. In many parts of medicine, you're a couple of senior doctors in front of me, and you know so much about medicine. Is that fair? Do what the advice you give, is that always the best advice? You're trying your very best, and it's wonderful you do that. But there are times, if anybody's interested, there was this psychic, you might call him, but a real legitimate one called Edgar Cayce, C-A-Y-C-E. Great books to read about him. He was a Baptist just between the First and Second World Wars. A very simple man, but then he could go into these trances, and people would ask him, I've got this patient here, he's got really bad cancer, what do you reckon? And in this trance he said, oh, you need this medicine. And they would check on the drugstore in town, and they would say that medicine doesn't exist. And they put him in trance again. He said, yes, it does exist. You'll find it in the drugstore in St. Louis. I remember this particular chapter. So they'd sent a telegraph that's the only way they could contact people quickly, to St. Louis, waited an hour or two, and they said, no, there's no drug in this drugstore in St. Louis. So he went in a trance again. You'll find it in that drugstore, in the back room, in the third shelf on the right, to the top. And of course the telegraph came through, found it! And that's just the amazing stuff which happened. And that, whatever that medicine was, it was incredible just how much it worked. The stupid amounts of dosages, not the usual standard medicines, but it worked. It's kind of weird. But that's the sort of stuff which I'm interested in, which is not done through the usual scientific methods of trying this medication, and working out the stats, or working out how it does restrict viruses or bacteria from hurting the body. So that's one of the reasons why that sometimes if we have a strong ego, we're the expert on things. Sometimes that stops us seeing more things. And I have to be very careful of that as a meditator or as a Buddhist expert. Please, I will make mistakes. That's the nature of life. But I also remember that Edgar Cayce, one person, this was in maybe 1936 or something, or that round about that time. They asked him when he was under trance, what is the most important law in the universe? You know what Edgar Cayce answered? Law of karma. 1936. I don't know even if he knew how to spell Buddhism. That's the thing which came up. Anyway. So actually, when you're free from being bound to particular points of view and egos, you have much more happiness in life. It's one of the sayings which I concocted. Never allow your knowledge to stand in the way of truth. Okay, Ajahn, could you please advise? I was diagnosed yesterday with terminal lung cancer. How should I relate to this? Well, it's a tough question. Terminal lung cancer, please excuse me, but I have seen several people with terminal lung cancer still living 20 years later. Terminal is only an approximation. So, where did that terminal lung cancer come from? I'm saying this because I think even Ajahn Brahm, can I say it? I think I can. Didn't realize this, that there was that lady Anita Murajani. She was in Hong Kong. She was sort of Indian by descent. She had this really bad cancers and nothing was working. It was terminal, and they gave her an operation and she died in the operation, left her body but came to again afterwards to the surprise of the doctors. And when she came back, she said she went to this light. I often mention this because I relate to that light as one of these nimittas, like meditation experiences. And when she came back, first thing she did when she came out of anaesthetic was say, I'm cured. And I thought, no, you're not, you've got tumours all over you. But she was. And the interesting thing about that, which I never told Ajahn Brahm, I thought he knew, that the GP of Anita Murajani, her GP, was a Western doctor called Brian Walker, who is the doctor at Serpentine Medical Centre in Serpentine, Western Australia. He migrated here. He's my GP. Weird. I just met him the other night. We had a big Vesak ceremony in Parliament House. And I just went through the wrong door and he was coming in for one of the Senate meetings or whatever. So he's a Buddhist. Anyway. Oh. So how should you deal with that? Just get a nice diagnosis, but never give up. Treat it with kindness, like the anger-eating monster simile. Give it kindness rather than fear. Oh my goodness. Question from Germany. Could you please explain the meaning of meditation and how it works in simple words? What is it? Thank you kindly. Okay, I've only got a couple of minutes. I'm already over time. Meditation is letting go. Letting go, trying to improve things, letting go, trying to get rid of things, letting things be. If you do it properly, you can feel everything gets very, very peaceful. That's about as much as I can do for now. Oh, a question from Medan in Indonesia. I never went to Medan, but I saw a lot of the students from Medan. Can chanting create miracles such as healing from illness and bring good luck? Okay, quick answer, no. It's not the chanting which heals people, it's what's behind the chanting. No, who's giving it and the amount of power they put into it. The chanting itself, no. And bring good luck. What is good luck? I know a few people, I think on Wednesday or Thursday, they came to monastery for some chanting. I didn't realize because there was a big lottery draw on Thursday. Did anyone win? Of course not, my chanting's hopeless. I don't know. Yeah, okay. Anyway, if a lot of people say, give us some chanting, we'll give you 10%. Say, 10%? I do all the work and you only give 10%? No, of course not. Did you have a question in the back? Quick one, yeah? Oh, sorry, you got exercise. Come on, faster, 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 faster. Okay.
Sorry, I might not be so quick.
Oh boy.
I've had a bit of trouble formulating this in my mind, but this is part of the issue, which is I'm trying to address. I think of the ego as being something that you develop as a way of defending yourself from the world.
Oh yeah.
So like a little kid has to learn to have an ego to be able to interact with the world, right? You are very clearly an intelligent, wise man in spite of your protestations. And that's not a matter of how you think of yourself, that's sort of an expression of something within you, I think. I think it is quite difficult for people who maybe struggle to let go of their ego and to be able to be vulnerable to that sort of danger of the world. And if you are capable, it's easier, but I think it is harder maybe for people not so much. Can you comment on that at all?
Yes, indeed. Like formulating a strong ego is a defense mechanism, and that's very true. I know that sort of when people do meditation, number one, we always try and make sure they're in a safe environment. That's why we encourage people to keep precepts here. I know here, you would sometimes wonder why people leave their shoes outside when they come in here. That's because I feel much safer. If I tell a bad joke, they can't throw anything at me. So that's just a stupid Ajahn Brahm joke. But I know that when people are counselling to get real, in other words, to actually to see who they really are and how to address problems, to get strength, there's an enormous amount of honesty, and that's scary. Even like the truth of, just who did what to whom. It's sometimes easy to say that people who have been abused, or the people who are the abusers, should fess up, say what they've done. But this is very scary stuff. And when it becomes that scary, it takes that. One of the best examples was from history. Truth and Reconciliation Commission, by Desmond Tutu. And that's where anybody, and Mandela, anybody who did some terrible, terrible abusive crimes, in the years in South Africa of apartheid, if they told the truth, they would be forgiven. And that was an absolutely brilliant idea. So that when we have no fear of the judicial penalties, you will still have consequences and the memories of what you did and opening up in front of others. But some amazing things happen. You don't need to feel vulnerable anymore. And that story which I've told here many times, the real story, a white South African police officer was describing how he'd tortured and killed a black African, ANC activist, in front of the man's wife. She was hearing for the first time how her husband had disappeared in the middle of the night and never came back. And then he was shaking all the time, apparently. So it was so hard to tell everyone what he did in a court, especially in front of the man's family, his wife. And when he finished his testimony, his wife jumped over the barrier, and she was very, very agile, and managed to weave around the security officers who were supposed to stop her, and grabbed him. And as she put her arms around him, he was just terrified. But she said, "I forgive you." And they hugged with kindness. And apparently just the whole courtroom just burst out weeping. Such a beautiful act. Could only happen when people have the sense of safety to be able to say what really happened, instead of hiding behind these false egos. Does that make any sense to you? Okay, thank you.